Isn't it fascinating how the mind dances between possibility and doubt? How one moment you feel the rush of excitement, the pulse of potential, the undeniable force pulling you forward, and then a flicker, a shadow, a whisper of worry tries to step in. But what if that hesitation was never real? Because the truth is, you're never meant to doubt yourself. That spark of energy, that deep knowing, that surge of momentum, it was always yours. It was always guiding you, urging you, moving forward. And the only thing that ever got in the way was an illusion, a story, a habit. But habits can change, because when you really think about it, have you ever noticed how fear, it only exists when you stop moving? Like a mirage on the horizon. It only seems solid until you step forward, until you reach for it and suddenly it's gone. Because fear can't survive action. Worry can't exist in the same space as momentum. And the moment you choose to move, to lean in, to trust, that feeling, everything shifts. Maybe you've already started to notice how different it feels. When you let go, how your body softens, how your breath deepens, how your mind sharpens. Not from overthinking, but from clarity. Because the more you release, the more power you reclaim. The more you let go, the further you can go. It's almost funny, isn't it? How the thing that felt so heavy, it was never even real. And now you know, now you see, doesn't it make sense? To step fully into your power, to let excitement be what it was always meant to be. Not a signal to hesitate, but a force to propel you. Because now, as you breathe into this moment, as you allow this truth to settle deeper, you begin to wonder, if you could always feel this way, what else becomes possible? And isn't it interesting how, the more you think about that, the more excited you become? Because isn't it curious how the mind, it can take the same energy and turn it into two completely different experiences? One moment, excitement is a rush, a thrill, a force that propels you forward. And then, somewhere, somehow, it twists, distorts, morphs into hesitation, into doubt, into that familiar grip of worry. What if that shift was never real? What if it was nothing more than a learned response, a pattern running on autopilot, an old program that was never even yours to begin with? And if it was never real, if it was never truly yours, then isn't it time to let it go? Because the more you think about it, the more you realize excitement and fear, they're the same energy. The only difference is the story you attach to it. One moves you forward, the other holds you back. But the moment you recognize that, the moment you see through the illusion, something changes. And maybe, just maybe, you've already started to notice that the more you embrace that energy, without labeling it, without resisting it, the more powerful it becomes. The more it fuels you, the more it lifts you, and the more unstoppable you feel. Because excitement, it was never the problem. Hesitation was never the problem. The only thing that ever held you back was the belief that you needed to stop. But why stop? When you were meant to go further. And as you begin to truly feel this now, deep within, as this realization settles into a place that just makes sense, you can't help but wonder, what happens when you stop questioning and just trust that feeling? Because after all, isn't it interesting how the more you let go, the further you rise? Because it's fascinating how the mind, with all its brilliance, it can take the very same energy that was meant to drive you and twist it into something that holds you back. That the rush, the thrill, the surge of excitement, designed to propel you forward, it can sometimes be intercepted by an old story, a worn-out belief, a habit of hesitation masquerading as caution. But what happens when you step beyond that illusion? Because right now, in this very moment, you're beginning to recognize something powerful. That anxiety, that worry, it was never real power. It was just energy, misplaced, misunderstood. And the moment you realize that the feeling itself never changed, only the meaning you gave it, something shifts. You weren't afraid. You were ready. You weren't overwhelmed. You were expanding. You weren't stuck. You're on the edge of something bigger. And what does the mind do when it stands at the edge of the unknown? It searches for certainty. It looks for patterns, for meaning, for something familiar to hold on to. And if all it's ever known is hesitation, then of course it'll reach for that. But what if right now you give it something new? What if you trained your mind to recognize that this feeling, this electricity, it isn't fear, it's power? Because the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Fear and excitement, they live in the same space. They run on the same current. The only difference is direction. One pulls you forward. The other tries to hold you still. But what happens when you refuse to stand still? What happens when you let the energy move through you? Pure, unfiltered, untwisted, exactly as it was meant to. And maybe, just maybe, you're already starting to notice how different it feels. How freeing it is. How right it is. And isn't it interesting how the moment you stop resisting, everything starts to flow? Because now, as this realization settles deep into the space where old doubts used to live, you can't help but wonder, what else becomes possible when you finally trust yourself completely?